يمشي بي في الناس كمن مثله في الظلمات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي خلق الخلق تفضلا واصطفى من عباده رسلا بعثهم مبشرين ومنذرين ليهلك من هلك عن بينه ويحيى من حي عن بينه. أحمده سبحانه وأشكره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، تنزه عن الأشباه والأنداد وتقدس عن الصاحبة والأولاد. وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان وسلم تسليما كثيرا أبدا ودوما. أما بعد. The suggestion that was presented for these khawatir was a tafsir. And then the suggestion went further on to specify the tafsir of the mightiest surah in the Qur'an, one of the pillars of the salah. And usually when starting with tafsir, many ulama begin with an introduction on the science of tafsir. Some ulama elaborate and some are brief on that. The introductions usually pertain to the science of tafsir, the history of tafsir, the principles of tafsir. Some mufassirin don't put an introduction at all. Because these are khawatir, we'll skip that introduction, because an introduction on the principles of tafsir or its history or the methodology of some of the ulama of tafsir, that may occupy the entire time that we have dedicated for these khawatir. And we want everyone to benefit from the tafsir of the surah itself. It's possible and better to do an entirely different series or a lecture on the science of tafsir. But I would still like to give a short, simple introduction. The knowledge that we're dealing with, or we're going to deal with, inshallah, is tafsir. It's a mighty noble subject because it deals with the Qur'an and its meanings. It's the knowledge that raised the mighty generation of the Sahaba. And if we want to raise or see a generation similar to them in their success in the dunya and in the akhirah, we need to raise our children and ourselves on that which they were raised upon. We need to scoop from the same fresh, pure spring they scooped from. The knowledge of tafsir is an essential knowledge, and its comparison to other sciences is like an ocean in comparison with the streams and rivers flowing from it. Someone will say, what about all that emphasis on tawheed? We mentioned tawheed and its importance many times. But that's taken from the Qur'an, from the tafsir of the Qur'an. And the sunnah is part of it in that context. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. When someone fluent in Arabic recites or listens to the Qur'an, there's a limited understanding one may attain. But even that, one must make sure that it coincides with the proper tafsir for many reasons. Fitras are tainted. Many who think they know Fusha don't really know it. The terms of the Qur'an encompass many meanings. The summarized verses may accept various ta'weels and interpretations, so one needs to dive into the tafsir in order to get the proper meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to understand from that verse. It's like the equipment for one heading to a treasure mine. It'll help one find treasure after treasure. A gold miner with no equipment may come out with a handful or two of gold. But a miner who goes with drilling machinery to drill deep into the ground, with detectors and rock hammers and crushers and other heavy duty equipment, comes back with loads of treasure. They go deeper and further and bring out loads of treasure. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Tafseer will help you attain the proper meaning, gain more meanings and understandings. Then you can build on that correct meaning and attain personal contemplations, wisdoms, reflections that you never imagined before. Everyone who goes to the vast ocean of the Qur'an will return with the necessities of their iman in their dunya, in this dunya, and their success in the akhirah. With the proper equipment, you get more. The verses you thought you knew with tafsir, you'll get a totally different perspective from them. It's similar to what I said in the Causes of Istighfar series. Who doesn't know and utter istighfar from the ummah? Practically everybody. I said when we did the istighfar series, when we're done, those who followed and studied will insha'Allah get a different perspective, and many, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, informed us of that. And that was just one branch of the many branches of istighfar, the causes of istighfar, just one of the branches. The same result happens with tafsir in general and in what we'll be doing with Surah Al-Fatiha, insha'Allah. This is a surah that must be read by a fard from Allah 17 times a day. Once you know its proper meanings, it'll help you concentrate in salah, and your mind won't wander in salah. Shouldn't one know further than the basic translations that he reads? In a surah that he's supposed to read by a fard from Allah 17 times a day, except a woman that's on her menstrual days. Tafsir in general is studying the word of Allah. The best topic to study is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the word of Allah, and it pertains to Allah, and it has what's essential for your success in this dunya and akhirah. You were created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can only learn how to fulfill that duty from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every time you purchase an item, you find manufacturers always enclose the annoying catalogs, the assembly directions, how to unpack it, how to put it together, how to care for it and maintain it, and everything else. With absolutely no comparison. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the supreme examples. Allah created you, and He created you for a noble mission and a noble purpose. Since that purpose is supreme and noble, it must be in a noble book. The book that has the guidance to perfect your entire dunya and akhirah. If one understands it and follows it. And you can only understand it with tafsir. You were created to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. It's imminent that there will be obstacles in that noble path specifically and in life generally. The Qur'an, by the will of Allah, nourishes a Muslim to maintain resilience, determination, and firmness on the path of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tawheed. A Muslim, by the will of Allah, will learn and attain from the Qur'an the spiritual strength and willpower and steadfastness that he needs. The Muslim or da'iyah who wants purity and consistency on his path makes the Qur'an his subject, consistently reading it, memorizing it, understanding it, learning it, contemplating it, and putting it into practice. Ever passed by a slum neighborhood like the ones in Detroit, for example? You see abandoned, ruined houses. They're ready for demolition. They usually end up becoming a place people dump the waste in. That's like a person without Qur'an. إِنَّ الَّذِي لَيْسَ فِي جَوْفِهِ شَيْءٌ مِّنَ الْقُرْآنِ كَالْبَيْتِ الْخَرِبِ. A mind and heart without Qur'an and the understanding of the Qur'an is like a ruined house. Once the heart and mind are ruined, it's like that abandoned house. It's now open to absorbing the wasteful dump of doomed ideologies. That's why you see some with some type of thinking, you don't understand where that could come from. It's a ruined house. The Qur'an livens the heart. The Qur'an and the love of it and the understanding of it frees and distances one from nifaq. There's no good in one who abandons the Qur'an and its understanding and acting upon. The more one abandons the Qur'an, the less he sees of its value. A heart that doesn't live with the Qur'an is a dead heart. An ummah not living under the shade of the Qur'an is a doomed ummah. An ummah not raised on Qur'an is a weak, misguided ummah, no matter how strong and guided they think they are. وَاتَّبِعْ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Allah tells His messenger, follow that which was revealed to you. The Qur'an is unique in that one must befriend it and live with it and give it part of him in order to reap some of its benefits. In an athar that was mentioned by al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Ibn Hajar mentioned it, Ibn Abi Dunya mentioned it, al-Baghawi mentioned it. Some ulama authenticate it, some weaken it, but the lesson is solid. A man went to Umar radiallahu an, needed something, and Umar radiallahu an asked him to verify his credibility. He said, bring me someone to testify to your credibility. He brought a man, and the man said, I testified to his credibility. Umar radiallahu an asked, were you his neighbor who knew his ins and outs and whereabouts and befriended him? He said, no. He said, did you travel with him? He said, no. He said, did you deal with him? He said, no. He said, then you don't know him. He told the man that needed the verification for his credibility, go bring me someone who knows you. This person does not know you. The man had to have superficially known the one he was testifying for, but he didn't properly know him. One doesn't properly know the Qur'an when it's on the shelf collecting dust. One doesn't properly know the Qur'an when he randomly reads or listens to it every now and then at funerals or in special occasions. You don't properly know the Qur'an unless you truly befriend it. You don't attain the benefits of the Qur'an unless you live with it and travel with it and constantly make it your companion. Befriending it means to constantly read it, listen to it, understand its meanings, memorize it as best as you can, and apply and act upon it. How much more can one be deprived than one, for example, who has a smartphone and AirPods in his ears, doing nothing useful? Yet he's deprived from tapping a screen that will allow him to listen to the word of Allah, that will purify his heart and mind and ease these dunya difficulties and bring him closer to Allah. I remember when I was a teenager and my father purchased me the first car. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a long life full of deeds. There was no iPhones, there was no CDs back then. It was the cassette tape era. The first thing I did was buy a cassette tape holder for the entire Qur'an, and I would play it one tape after another. Tape 1, side A, then flip it to side B. And it was usually back then 30 minutes or 45 minutes each side. Then I put tape number 1 in the holder, take out tape number 2 and play it until I listen to it and start over again. One can simply touch it on his iPhone, yet he doesn't do that. He's deprived. They don't understand how deprived they are from listening to the word of Allah. Many in this ummah are deprived from the word of Allah, from listening to it, reading it, memorizing it, and understanding it, and applying it. So simple to tap a screen, to listen to the word of Allah, yet they're deprived. Attachment to the Qur'an is tawfiq from Allah. He gives that tawfiq to whom He wills, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us and all those who listen to us this tawfiq and guidance. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.